Okay, as promised, I want to talk about corner pinning for just a little bit. I realized in preparing for this video that there's so much I want to show that goes beyond corner pinning because, as I've said, I don't really use it for like tracking a surface to replace this sign, but it does set the foundation for so much more in Flame that I do use with the trackers, whether that's doing some UV unwrapping or some more specific retouching on shapes that aren't necessarily planar, or just the fundamentals of separating out how tracks work with axes versus surfaces. So there's a lot to unpack. I want to do so very quickly and not belabor anything too long on this so that we can move on to some of that more interesting stuff once we've kind of laid the foundation here. So for some of you, this will be very new. For others, it will be all too familiar. Let's just kind of just go back a step because I want to just mention this as we're still talking about planar tracking a little bit and corner pinning and surfaces, is that a couple things about the perspective grid that make it really special, just if we can do it again really quickly, is that it's designed so well to attach surfaces to this grid. So when I go ahead and track this, and we'll just do this again, snap, we're going to analyze, and then let's say I'm going to actually attach some artwork. What's nice is the minute it gets parented, and again, just need to zero that out. I really wish that would be fixed. I can immediately start to scale down the axis. Let me just hide this icon. And I'm already in position. So that makes the guesswork almost none, as I've already got all this kind of set up for me. What's even better is, and you've probably noticed this, is that it also moves on the plane. So that's why setting up your grid initially to be nice and straight is probably pretty helpful, just so that you have just that much more data at your fingertips that's usable and accurate, so that you are able to kind of manipulate this without having to retrack. One other thing that has come up is if you want to change your shape, and this is very much what we're going to end up doing in corner pinning, is that you can change your surface type. So, as a flat surface, I can't manipulate any of the corners. I can shear and use all my translation stuff in the axis, but on the surface level, I would need to switch to one of these other types. We'll go over bilinear and perspective today. Extended bicubic we'll get to at another time in regards to tracking and whatnot. But once I make it a different surface, I could then bleed these corners out as I need to, or whatever I need to do to kind of service my track is all possible once you have the initial track set. So there's a lot of flexibility. This also leads to another question that comes up a lot is, do I need the perspective grid? Can I just use a garbage mask? So let's just hide this for now. So the answer is yes, but I don't know fully why you would. But here we're going to apply data through planar tracking to just the garbage mask. So I'm in tracking, it defaults to just a regular 1.2 point track. We're going to go to planar. It's a perspective track. So we're essentially doing a perspective grid kind of operation right now. It's already inclusive of the garbage mask. We need to use the media 0, which is the background. And once I hit F8 and start tracking, the track will be exactly the same pretty much to what the perspective grid gave us. But now I have to kind of work harder, which I don't like to do, to get this to work. So if you're in a situation like this, here's all your data, everything that you tracked. So it's got perspective and whatnot, but you need to kind of put this into position, and depending on your situation, that might become annoying and you are going to have to fight and work with it. If I switch to one of these surface types that give me control over the vertices and the corners, then your work is a lot easier because the data is set, and now we can just kind of, rest assured that our planar track is holding all the information, and we've just kind of lined up the surface to kind of give us the look that we're going for. So that is how I would handle planar tracking for this image if I was not doing corner pinning. But as I would like to show corner pinning, because like I said, it's a gateway to so many other things in Flame, let's talk about it. So I've dragged in a new surface. My background is the clip and that we want to apply our tracking to. And that's important because in the planar tracker, it will always look at the background layer to be its source for tracking. That changes when we track the UVs, but for today's purpose, let's just assume that you want your background to be the kind of the source for your tracking. So as you can see, as a flat surface, I don't have any control over, there's no tracking options. You have to be in a surface type that allows multiple points to be tracked. And so once I've changed the surface type, this becomes ungrade, and now there is a tracker option. For a planar track, we want, for a corner pin, we want all 4 points to be tracked. If I only select 1 point, I'm only going to see 1 tracker. I cannot add more, I cannot do anything else, so I just have to cancel out of there. You really need to make sure all 4 are selected. If I want to or just do a 1 point or 2 point track, I can do that as well. The data will still be applied to the surface, and we can work with that. But again, today we want to just take these 4 corners and basically map them to the sign. So how do we do that? Well, let's see, we just grab these 4 trackers. I'm going to say tracker to each point, and then it's just as easy as placing these trackers into position, and we'll hit track and everything should snap kind of into place. I'd like to expand upon that though quickly once this is done. Okay, so here is your track. Everything looks, pretty good. Again, it's only tracking these 4 corners. It doesn't account for any of the surface. So in my opinion, it's again not necessarily the route I would take to get to a simple track like this, but it's definitely possible. What I do want to talk about though is the surface type, because you'll see as I choose between the two, the data on the surface is the same. So the 4 vertices are still moving at the same with the exact XY points. That hasn't changed, but the way that the surface is being rendered has shifted. Every time I read the Autodesk's explanation of this, it doesn't make me feel any more confident about the answer and my explanation to you. I'm literally going to read it and paraphrase a little bit just as I have it up. A bilinear surface has 4 vertices on each corner, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's very much a linear interpretation of this of the data, which creates these straight lines. The perspective is a surface that also has 4 corners, 4 vertices, and is very similar to a bilinear surface. The difference is that the vertices form a perspective plane. So I do believe that, I think the intention is if you're tracking like a phone or something that's coming towards camera or something that you want to kind of be a little bit more realistic in how a surface might be rendered as it's coming at you, so versus something that's going to be equidistant, this will very much kind of stretch as you're getting a different perspective from these points. Okay, so I call it dealer's choice. I think you should go with whatever looks best in your comp and what suits your needs. I think the takeaway is that you can switch between them and it's not destructive. So this is the foundation for the corner pin. That is exactly what it does. If you're ever in a jam and confused, just know that the 4-point tracking happens at the surface level, can only be accessed through the surface menu. If you are in over here and you see tracking and you want to enter the tracker, well, here, let's switch the layer. It's only tracking 1 point because that is what we have set. We don't have any rotation or scale. If I enter it again, we now have 2 points, but there is no option for me to add trackers, make it 4 points, use this surface in this track menu. That's just not how it's designed. So, in theory, on this particular example anyway, you could even delete the axis altogether, and that might help remind you that you're really just taking the 4 vertices and mapping them to where you want them to sit in the corner pin. So that is the nature of it. One thing that I'll show you just so you can kind of see the workflow really quickly is that, what might start to happen. Oh, and actually before we get there, let me just back up for a second. If I did this wrong, it will not let you continue past a certain point. So in this example, if I'm trying to map this grid to this background and I get confused, let's say I've kind of set the bilinear and I know that's what I want to track, but I can't remember if it's vertices or UV points, and I go into the tracker, you'll see that it is 100% not going to let me track the background because it is tracking the surface, which in this case is the checkerboard, and this is the UV of the checkerboard. So I would quickly realize that I need to track the vertices, and now I can go in and rest assured that I'm reading the background as my source, but the data will be applied to my layer, which is the checkerboard. So again, this is what happens. If you did it the other way, and now we're gonna go kind of one step further. This is just kind of a tease for kind of what's coming. I'm switching to our F8 view, which is our object view. You'll see the purple outline. Here is our surface, and I'm going to switch it to a bilinear. And now I'm just going to move the points, but I'm going to move them in this object view, and you will see this UV unwrap as we do it. There are a lot of ways that we can, again, do something similar to this. This is just the way that I'm kind of highlighting it today. So basically, we've now unwrapped the UV of our surface, and we're still going to do a corner pin, but this is now nice, and it's nice and flat, and we can paint and we can do whatever. We still need data applied to what's going on. Actually, let me just go back to do it on the first frame. I haven't set any keyframes yet, so everything's fine. Okay, so we have a nice surface. I'm gonna grab all 4 points. I'm doing so in the object view. So again, this is this F8 view. It's a action object surface view. And now we'll go into the vertices. I'm gonna track each point. I can move each one into place. And I will probably end up doing this again so you can see a couple iterations of it. Hit analyze. So now what's happening is a lot of what's going on. So I'm gonna send the vertices to the UV points. So now what you'll see is that the UV points and the vertices are now mapped together. So the tracking has been applied to both the vertice and the UV points. I'll go back to F8 for a minute. But what I want is that kind of unstretched view again. So with my surface selected, I can reset all on the vertices. And so now you see the tracking data is intact, but has unwrapped for our UV. So what I could do with this information, well, let's just we got our smiley face. I'm going to duplicate this setup, keep this background, and just. So now what's going to happen is we kind of need to, just like an inversion of stabilization or axis or anything we're doing, we're going to do the same thing. So now I want to take the UV points. Let me go back to the two views, and I want the UV points to go to the vertices. So now we're going to send the UV points to the vertices, and then we're going to reset all because I don't kind of want that information anymore. So now you'll see that everything has kind of inverted. So in our object view, it is now the UV view, and in our kind of result view, it's everything kind of mapped back together. So this is kind of the foundation for what would start to happen with more intricate pieces of geometry. So, you know, I can, with an extended bicubic and adding more points, I can have kind of more curvature and just do some other things that a straight up perspective planar kind of track can't do. So let me do this again one more time. Might do it a little bit differently just so you can see the alternative and just a little bit of a different version of it. So we'll load our surface and change that to bilinear. And again, if I'm going to do it in this case, let's see if we track the other way. So we'll track through the UV, but I'll still move. If I do it this way, you're not going to get quite the result. So don't be surprised when I back up here in a second. Because if we do this, let's see, maybe it'll work. There we go. So this was the faster way to get there. I don't have to reset anything because I set everything and I didn't track on the vertices. I tracked on the UV points themselves. So that's why everything is already in place and I don't need to reset anything and kind of move data from the vertices to the UV points. What operation will still happen from here is exactly the same though, in that I can paint on my surface and just do this, and then we can duplicate this node and we need the background back, and then we'll add an input. And here, we're going to assign the media to layer 1, which is our node. And now, we still have a UV point that we need to get back to the vertices, so that part of the operation is still the same. So, you just click F8 so you can see. So now we have UV points, we go to vertices, and then I reset all, and we're now in the exact same situation we were in before, in that things are tracked on as you expect. But again, just to bookend this one more time, because I know I went rogue a little bit, is at its simplest level, if I'm just trying to do a corner pin and just kind of like understand what the heck is going on, let's just do it one more time. I have a layer that I want to track in. The surface type needs to change, so let's make it a bilinear surface. I am going to select all the points. I'm going to track the vertices so that each point will be mapped to a new location. We'll set the tracker. So I see that I'm on the last frame, so I'll have to track backwards, and now we have our surface attached. This is the nature of it, and would get you well beyond your first steps. Thank you for kind of weaving in and out of Clarity with me, and rolling with it. And I will continue to kind of refine this process so we can kind of develop it from here. Thanks.